ideas marched off into the war to end all wars.
For the last year or so, I've been working with a group called Southern Voices, who have done a huge amount of research around World War I and the colonies. And now I'm doing a piece of artwork that's building on that research. And it involves a character, it involves poetic visuals, it involves the pulls on this character as she goes through this, endless cycle of wars and loops and spin and video games.
Whoa.
World War I was one of the first wars, or possibly the first war, that this idea of spin was developed, where ideas and messages about war, which the government desperately wanted to put out, were in a very sophisticated way, were pushed through trade unions, schools, or health service, all kinds of things. It wasn't just simply crude propaganda thrown out. This was a very sophisticated way of getting into people, really, and getting the message out. So these are things that I'm really wanting to touch on in the piece of artwork that I've been doing. From the old war comics that used to glorify different aspects of the world wars, right the way through to Hollywood films and video games that people play now. We're often faced with the idea that World War I was about Europeans fighting other Europeans, together with people from North America and Russia and Japan and Australia. And there were people from European colonies. In the case of Britain, that would have been India, Nigeria, East Africa and West Indies, which were hugely involved in the war. Just from India alone, 1.5 million soldiers were involved. That's a quarter of the number from Britain. And there's been a number of moves recently which have started to recognise people from colonies. That's been good, but it's not been enough. People from those colonies, even though they're given their lives, and even the ones that didn't fight were putting so much labour and effort and giving their own resources, which they couldn't really afford. These were very poor countries. And despite that, the big overriding thing is they can't be owed anything for doing all that, even though it wasn't their war either. And I think more and more people are gradually realising that's a disgrace, and it just adds to the futility of war. I got very interested in looking at wars in general, how war has become a machine and surrounded by spin and lies and lack of truth, and also how people from countries that were colonised are still getting the brunt end in many respects in so many wars.